This is the Unlock Your Inner Creator series, and I'm your host, Noylin Mendoza. My intention with this series is to spark conversations with passionate change makers and creatives that bravely dared to dream of new ways and took massive action. Despite the chaos that's happening around us, a radical and liberated future, a new earth can be realized and is possible if we choose to take brave steps. So I invite you to explore with me what that can look like. Welcome, everyone. We are on the second episode of the second season of the Unlock Your Inner Creator series. Today is a new moon, so happy new moon. We are officially in the last season of the year. It is October. I think it's bananas because I can't believe how fast this time has gone. When we think about the energy of the new moon, it's a new lunar cycle. And with that, it symbolizes new beginnings, a rebirth, if you will. It's a time to build, create, and spark new projects. It's also a great time to reflect on what has passed, the old, so that we can start a different path forward. And so with that, this season of the Unlock Your Inner Creator series is focused on the process of endings and beginnings. So my intention for this series is to spark conversations with passionate change makers and creatives that bravely dare to dream of new ways and took massive action. So as we open this conversation, I call on the energy and the power of transitions. What does it mean to be in this threshold, this in-between liminal space of the old and stepping forth into the new? So I invite you to explore with me what that could look like. Today, I am so thrilled to have a dear, dear friend. Kei Karayan is a founder of Kasama Culture. She's a creative, she's a birthworker, and a chef. She's also a proud Pinay with Ilocana and Ibanag roots from the northern region of Luzon, Philippines. She comes from a line of resilient, strong, and powerful ancestors whose Bayanihan spirit still lives on through her work. Cherishing a symbiotic relationship with the land that continues to nourish and take care of all of us with love and respect. Kei turns to plant medicine wisdom that is embedded in her DNA, and we see this through her magical and beautiful food. She strives to connect to her matriarchal line that has uplifted, protected, and guided her, even though she has never met them in this lifetime. So Kei prioritizes the deep healing and decolonizing work as Kapwa in the diaspora, reclaiming and remembering our ancestral ways. All of these truths fill her heart with joy that she centers her life around. So everyone, the incredible Kei, welcome, welcome, welcome.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Noylin, for the wonderful introduction.
Absolutely. Okay, is there anything else that you'd like to share with us?
I think you nailed it pretty much. I think something that I also do that maybe not a lot of people know is I'm also a community organizer and an activist here in Long Beach, fighting for the rights of Filipinos here in the diaspora and also back home in the Philippines. And so that's something that I also do for my community as well, on top of the other things that you mentioned. So I keep it busy.
Yeah, absolutely,
Definitely. Yeah.
absolutely. Wonderful. I always like to start this interview series by talking about the people that have most influence creators. So for UK, who has been the most influential for you? Who would you like to call into this space?
Wow, there are so many people who have, helped shape who I am today. And if there's one person that I have to pick and that I choose to pick every time I'm asked this question, it's actually my maternal grandmother, my Lola, Ederlina Domingo Parayo. I never met her in my lifetime. She passed away when she was a little over 30 years old. So even my mom didn't really know her, but I have this deep connection to her, even though we've never met. And she definitely guides me through my work in so many ways.
That's so beautiful. As you were saying that, I thought about this image that I saw when I was pregnant, I think with my second child. And it was this image of a pregnant woman in her uterus, and It shows her baby, and then there's all of these like mothers that are hugging her, right? And then it was just talking about the the child that is in this mother's womb actually was also in the womb of her grandma as well
Yeah.
when her mother was a baby in there. And I just thought that was so fascinating when we think about the DNA, right, of our ancestors, that even though you didn't meet her, that you've always felt like she was part of you. It's because you were part of her, right, at some
Right.
point. I
Yeah.
just think that that's like super beautiful. And then also you're a birth worker in that way.
Yeah, definitely. And really interesting enough to go off of that, I didn't know that her presence and the connections to her was missing until I started my birth work.
Mm.
So it really came full circle for me when I started on my path, like my life path. So yeah, this is a really recent connection that I've made with her that I didn't know I was waiting for or needing. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. That's so incredible. What do you say, what have been her biggest insights for you?
As a birth worker or just in general?
Just in general, maybe as a birth worker, we could start there or just in your life.
Yeah.
What wisdom has come through?
I think one of the bigger wisdoms that have come through for me is that the medicine is already inside of you. It just really takes whatever path in your life to get there and recognize that, acknowledge it, and own it, right? Like you can resist this medicine your whole life, like I have, right? I only started becoming a birth worker, or my path to being a birth worker. When did we meet? 2017. So almost 5 years ago now. So fairly recent. But the years before that, really resisting birth work and trying to conform to what society or parents or family wanted me to be. But it wasn't until I really surrendered this message and this deep calling to this work that I was able to really uh, feel whole, dive into
Mm.
myself, and discover so many parts of myself that I didn't really know existed at the time. So yeah, just really just surrendering to your path and not being afraid to go on that path. Really,
Yeah.
yeah.
You said something that I thought was really interesting. It's like you were resisting it for a really long time. What allowed you to listen?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I don't know if it was an allowing for me, but really was I want to say like this force because I was actually, funny enough, we talked about how I was a chef. I'm a chef, right? I was in food for for well over 10 years before I even started my doula path. So um I was tired. I wasn't feeling fulfilled. I was, not working for myself or creating something that felt in line with me. I was doing that for others. So it was really this my body and spirit just saying like I'm done. I'm ready to honor this calling for doula work that I've had since I was maybe 4 or 5 years old. So really a 20-year span of hey, birth work, babies, something along those lines that I was resisting until my body and my mind, my spirit literally said enough, go towards that path. And I listened, and it was scary, definitely, because food was kind of all that I knew at the time, whether that was cooking, managing small businesses here in Long Beach, or working in the food industry here. That was kind of all I knew. So, really taking a step back from that was really this big leap of faith. And I had the support of so many other healers that they would plant seeds. So I was very supported going into this path, and I'm really happy that I chose to.
Yeah. I mean, you bring up so much wisdom in what you just said, right? Like you listened to your body and to the point you were just really tired.
Yeah.
of doing this thing that you were doing for a decade. That's a long time to invest in something. And I think for some folks, right, when you look back, and even though your body and your mind and your heart and your spirit are tired, you keep thinking about that time that you invested. And it's almost like, well, was it a waste? Was it for naught? If I make this leap, and I think that there's that conflict and that conundrum of wondering, what's next? But there was something in you that said, you can't keep going. This is not sustainable. Right? And then I love how you talked about like this has been a dream of yours for a really long time to be able to identify 4 years old of when that spark first started. And I remember I was having a conversation. I'm part of this group of women who come together on a daily basis and we talk about our dreams. And one of the women, shout out to JJ, because she gave me like this big aha. And it's so related to the work that I do, which is really supporting people to reconnect and, to these dreams. And she said, oftentimes we have to look at our goals and our dreams as dreams in hibernation. And it may look like you abandoned them, but maybe it's just that they were sleeping and they need to be reawakened again in lots of ways. And I feel like that's what you did to come back to birth work and to
Yeah, I love
explore that.
that. Yeah, it really was sitting there for 20 years, right? Until it was
Sleeping.
ready to come out. Yeah, it was always there. It was just sleeping, taking a long nap.
Yeah. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
absolutely. And it's okay to come back to, our last interview with Elise Talua, she had talked about that. She's had this long time dream, and she thought that, it was a certain timeline. It wasn't 3 years that she thought that she was going to get on this path. It actually took her 15. And so to be okay to understand that sometimes it takes longer. So you had mentioned folks, you had healers in your network, you had resources that supported you. What other advice would you give to someone who may be listening to this and maybe they were at that point that you were at 5 years ago, tired, really just wondering if this is what I'm supposed to be doing, and maybe a little bit afraid to take that leap? What helped you
Mm.
to take that? Just to me, it's a baby step. Take that one step, and then you just keep taking another. What helped you?
What comes to mind first, and funny, I haven't really thought about this in a long time, were words that a friend of mine told me. She said that the door is open for you. Are you going to walk through it or are you going to stay back here?
Wow.
And that like really like I sat with that for so long, and it's scary to go through the door, right? But what choice are you going to make? Are you going to stay here and continue to be tired, or are you going to walk through the door and see what's on the other side? So again, it's really trusting that um, you will be okay on the other side. It might be scary, but what's scarier, staying the same or shifting? And the only constant is change, right? So why not? The door is open for you, and you have the power to go on the other side if you really want to. So
Wow. The door is
yeah.
open. It's always been open. And I love that you brought the door because when we think about threshold, right, one of the visuals you think of a threshold is literally like the threshold of a door. So you're just kind of standing in between one room to the other, or like you're about to go outside. So you're like in the threshold of your home to the outside. So the door is always open. Are you going to choose to stay in that space? And you can be in the middle and you can gain the wisdom of what's back here and then also gain the hope that's right in front of there. I love it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's really simple, right? But it
yeah,
means so much. It's so powerful.
it's so powerful, right? And then you said something, right? Are you going to continue to be in this room where you're tired? Are you going to take a chance and maybe on the other side it is going to be better? But we don't know unless you take that first step forward. I'm going to sit with that for a little bit. That's a good one. That's a really,
Yeah. Shout out to June for telling me that.
yes, yes. All the J's with wisdom for us, right?
Yes. Yes.
Um, so what a lot of people actually don't know, the reason I know Kay, you had said a little bit, we met in 2017. We were both part of this plant medicine class in Long Beach. I had just come from New York. I probably was at that point maybe like 4 or 5 months back in California, having lived in New York for 17 years. And I had taken the same class in New York earlier that year and felt like I need to learn more. So it was kind of a repeat for me. But I'm so, so grateful that I went to that class because I met you. And so my running joke whenever I tell people, this is how I know Kay. We were in this class and we were going around, we were doing introductions. And there were three Filipino birth workers. And I just remember the first thought that came into my mind were, where were you all when I was pregnant with my first child? Because I kid you not, I was searching high and low when I was in New York. I was looking for someone from my culture, from my heritage, to be a doula. And I couldn't find any. And there was something in me that I just kind of knew, like, if I could connect with someone who understands my culture, I feel like it would be a very powerful and potent medicine. And I remember that I would like look at books and I would try to find like, what are foods that a pregnant person should eat postpartum. There was really like not a lot of info. There was a dearth of info. And I just kept thinking, why is that? Like I'm finding stuff on all of these other communities, especially other Asian communities. I was like, how come there's not really? And then I remember talking to my mom and my aunt, and it was almost like they had to really go back. Like, what was it that we said? And then it wasn't only until I like, oh, I actually read something and then they found out, oh yeah, but it was like locked away and it was like forgotten. And I just kept thinking, you had said something that I don't know if you remember, but I remember it.
Hmm.
I think the question was like, why are you in this class and why do you think it's important? And you had said something about like this obligation of us in this generation of folks who are from the Filipino diaspora living in the US. That, again, here's a threshold. We're like in the in between, right? It's like our parents were the immigrants. We're the first generation living here, first or second generation. And then there's a potential of so much of our culture could be lost if we don't take active steps to like learn it, to retain it, to share it with future generations. And I was like, oh crap! Like you are so right, you know, and how much of it just one generation off hasn't been taught to us. And I was thinking about that with my first birth. I was like, wow, we're only like first generation here, and the women in my family don't even really remember the traditional ways, right? Of pregnancy, of postpartum, of birthing. Like it was like just so it was so mind blowing to me. So I just wanted to lift that up because that's one thing that I remember from you. So back to my story about joking about you being one of the doulas. I was like, wow, I wish I would have known you. I would have hired you. So I want to tell this to the people that are listening. Be mindful of what you say and the power of your wishes and desires because things can happen super, super fast. Because literally less than a month later, I found out I was pregnant with my second, and I hired Kay to be my birth doula. And so that's how we knew each other. So, one of the things that I think is so powerful and so remarkable about birth workers, but especially those that are in the quote delivery room with a pregnant person, is that you are literally supporting and you're bearing witness to birth. And it's not just one birth. I always like to say this. I feel like when I had my kids, I also birthed myself. Like I birthed a new person. I'm completely a different person. So I wonder if you could talk about what have been some of the biggest pieces of wisdom or things that not only surprise you, but you're just like, as a birth worker, that takes you back to like, this is why I do this work. Do you have any stories that you're open to sharing with us?
Yeah, wow. So even just yesterday was a first birthday of a birth that I stepped in for like a short period of time. I didn't get to witness this baby come earthside, but I got to support someone really near and dear to me. And in my message to her, I just, when I think about all of my births, and this one's just fresh, so like I just remember this, like you really see someone in their most vulnerable and also in their most powerful, right?
Mm.
Like the two exist in one space at one time, like, and to be able to witness that is like a whole other experience that I've ever experienced before. Like to see someone really just in their power and yet so vulnerable is, you really have to see it and feel the energy that's in that room. And I'm there to coach, I'm there to guide, and also my clients have to also recognize that the medicine is in them, right? We talked about our ancestors, right? And really we co-create the space where we can allow ancestors to come and guide us and realize that we're not alone in this. There may be 3 people in the room, but there's a lifetime of ancestors with us. So that's something that I always like to create, that visual with my clients of just, you're not alone in this. And other wisdoms for me as a birth worker, especially when I was starting out, Noyland, I was very, very like early in my doula,
Mm-hmm.
in my doula work when you hired me. And as a doula, especially in your first year, it can be really intimidating, like, can I do this? Am I capable? Can I hold space for my client in a good way? And funny, at your birth, I stepped out for a little bit, just, to take like 5 minutes to myself to ground and really, again, calling in my Lola of like, I am just this vessel of my ancestral wisdom, right? Like this is embedded in my DNA. I am guided, I am capable, and I trust myself to be able to hold space in a good way. So really, um, yeah, that imposter syndrome can be so real, but really just remembering that I was called into this work for a reason.
Yeah.
I have the medicine inside of me. It's embedded in my DNA, and I can hold space in a good way. So really, I guess the piece of advice is really trust yourself. Trust yourself when you're doing this work.
Mm. I
Yeah.
think both for, right, creators, both for as a birth worker, but as somebody who is laboring and birthing. And it's so interesting. I didn't realize that you had stepped out because, if anybody knows, if anybody had a baby, sometimes you're there and you're not there during moments. And both my labors were very long. Like we're talking like over 24-hour labor. So sometimes the body is there and the mind and the heart are somewhere else. But it's interesting that you stepped out and you called on your grandma. And I don't know if I ever told you this story, but I also, at some point, for some reason, this download came through and was like, you have got to invoke on your grandma. She delivered 8 kids. You could do this. It was just one of those, like, you literally, and it's like back to what you were saying. It's like sometimes we forget that this is actually in our DNA and we can call in for that wisdom and help, literally. That we're not in this journey alone. That there's so many holding you, right? Whether they're here in, this earth side physical plane or not, right? But there's just so many that are holding you. And you talked about that too, like when you made that leap to leave food, to become a birth worker, there were so many that were surrounding you. And I think sometimes we forget that. So I'm just grateful for the reminder. Yeah, of it.
Yeah.
Incredible. Oh. Okay, let me sit with that a little bit because we like took ourselves back a few years. I think it was a very potent and powerful time for both of us. You know, your work, whether it's food and creating food for other people, whether it's supporting them, right, in their pregnancy, birth, postpartum journey, a lot of it is high touch. A lot of it
Mhm.
requires in person. And obviously, because of the pandemic, all right, some of this couldn't be in person for safety reasons. So, I'm just really curious, how have you had to shift in the work that you're doing to be able to still, hold space for folks in the ways that they need? What was different during this time?
Yeah, definitely. As you mentioned, the touch, right? There is no guarantee during this really fragile time that I will be in the birth room with you.
Mm,
Things are changing with COVID every day. One day you can have your partner and a doula there. The next day you can't. You have to pick, right? I've actually have been in a position where my first COVID birth, yeah, my client had to pick between me and their partner. That's really hard for the birthing person, right? Ultimately, she chose me, which, you know, that was a decision that they made together and they thought was the right decision. So having to make really hard decisions like that, also having to move a really intimate space virtually, like I can't touch you here,
yeah.
it's different. We can connect, but there's also a disconnect, right? And I think also for me as a birth worker, um, also taking care of my clients and making sure that they feel taken care of and held in this digital space, this virtual space, but also how is birth work going to sustain me during a pandemic when it's very uncertain?
Hmm.
Um, so in terms of what my work looks like, yes, I do take clients. Most of my births, either I have not been there physically because of the constraints with hospitals, but I really have made a really big point to shift the way that I doula and really empower and coach not only my client, but also the person who's going to be there with them. They are going to be the extension of my touch, right? And really just preparing them to feel empowered to do so. And, I'm only a phone call, a text, a Zoom or a FaceTime away. So they're not alone in that, but really giving them the tools to be able to do that without my presence. And, everyone has been and is super capable of being a soul birth partner. And it does take that coaching to really, um, feel confident in that. So I've been lucky enough to work with not only my birth clients, but also their partners to really feel whole and supported as a unit. And in terms of birth work and being bedside, I've really had to shift my work a little bit. Yes, I do take clients, birth clients, and also what are other ways that I can be a birth worker that isn't as a bedside doula? And I've been transforming my work and really utilizing this online platform um, to be able to reach more than the LAOC area, um, not as a birth doula, but just as a doula with um, knowledge that I want to share. Right, Amanda, who was also in our Philippine ancestral medicine class, and I have been doing workshops on birth work, which has been really great because, yeah, again, we can reach a lot of people and I feel like there's this call to learn and to learn this ancestral medicine. And like you said before, there are really no books, right? Pieces of writing are very sparse. And there's this longing. We're at this time now where, 5 years ago, there weren't a lot of Filipinx doulas, but now there are so many. And we are all craving this knowledge and wanting this knowledge to further our birth work and also to feel connected to ourselves, right? So really expanding beyond the birth room is really what the pandemic has offered me. And it's been a really fun journey, to be honest. It's birth work in a different way, and it doesn't have to look one way, right? It can look different for everyone. And this is where I've been called, aside from being a bedside doula as well.
Ooh, that's a good one. It's beyond, right? The birth room. It's beyond. And this is an exciting time. Like we can see it as, wow, I went from like having to be really in person and I'm really being challenged, or how can I expand and how can I reach more people? Right? What do you think have been the biggest things that you learned about yourself, in the last year and a half? What has been the biggest surprise for you?
I think one of the biggest surprises that I've learned about myself is that um, if I really set my mind to it, I can make things happen. And I think it really I've had to learn again, like going back to trust myself that I can do it and that I am capable, and to not let fear override the ability to thrive, right? So yeah, in the last year and a half, I've had to get really creative in how to do my work, how to sustain myself during a pandemic, and really being open to trying a lot of new things. I've never hosted a workshop on my own before virtually. There's a lot of moving parts to that, right? On top of just like grounding myself to be able to speak to people. I've become more of an extrovert, but I feel like I'm still very introverted. So really stepping out of my comfort zone is really what it is. Whether it's an online workshop or even stepping back into food, right? I told myself 10 years ago, I'm never going back into food. Never. I told myself I'm going to stay on this doula path. Funny how during a pandemic, this is what presented itself to me again. And really being open to, even though I said no before, being okay saying yes again to something, you know? So yeah, really trusting myself, being open to trying new things and really letting my creative side flow and carry me through this pandemic. That's been a lot of my lessons in the last year and a half.
Yeah, I love it. You said no before and you're saying yes, but I think you're saying yes with a different pair of eyes.
Definitely.
Right. I want to talk
Definitely.
about food. We talked a lot about birthwork, but you also are a chef and you've had these really awesome events. So talk to us a little bit about the food part of your work.
Yeah, the food really came um, to me last summer. Um, I was Amanda's doula. She'll openly say this, and we talk about it a lot in our workshops. And I, of course, wanted to make her some food to sustain herself post birth, right? To replenish all of her nutrients. I told her she's not eating a turkey sandwich as her first meal if I can help it. So I made her chicken pinola. Um, and after her birth, she took her first sip, and the expression on her face, her bodily reaction, and the tears that started flowing down her face really was like this pivoting moment of like, oh wow, food, especially food from the motherland, especially post birth, can really just like heal you in this this way, from the inside out, right? And she was the one who actually told me like, hey, this is amazing, you need to offer this to more clients. I was only making it for my clients like postpartum, like I think I made you Mongol for you, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I knew that with the shift of my work with the pandemic, births aren't guaranteed. that I really took that to heart. Like, oh, my food can be healing. My food is healing. And I didn't want to just offer it to my clients. I wanted to offer that to community because I really think that that's what they were looking for during these trying times. Comfort, right? Comfort through food, familiar tastes. Maybe they couldn't see their grandparents or parents, but I was here to cook Filipino food. I had just moved into the house that I'm in now and really saw this space as a potential to bring people together. And it just so happened that it was going to be through food for me. So I created what I call the Halika market. And it's really a market for artists, creatives, people in food to be able to share their gifts and have a space and a market that is, full of Filipinx creatives. And it's been a really awesome space. And I want to go back to the Bayanihan spirit for a little bit, because for me, Kasama culture isn't just for me, it's not just for my clients. It's not just for the people that I work with, but also it's for community. And a lot of the people who have vended at my market, it was their first time. So also opening the space for community to thrive during this trying time as well.
Yeah.
And so going back to the food has been so nourishing for me in a way, because it really brought me back to self, something that I really loved to do before that I put away for a long time. Like, I love food, eating food, making food, sharing food. And it also helped me honestly like repair a lot of my relationship with my mother, because I was also not, I had learned a lot through my time with food over the last 10 years, but also I wasn't working in Filipinx spaces, right? I had my my skills that I've learned over the years. And also I was really wanting to learn the ancestral ways, the folk style way. And my mom is a really awesome chef, really great chef. And so to be able to ask her questions and to connect through food has been super healing for me too. Like, I get to learn and also, like create this new relationship with my mom over, over food. So it's been a really layered journey, I'd say. And it's ongoing. It's still, working its way into fruition in the way that I want to. And yeah, it's just been a really, really fun journey for me.
Yeah, and I love how, you know, plant medicine, food medicine is on just so many levels, right? It's not just nourishing your physical body, it's also healing and nourishing relationships too. That's beautiful. So, talking about nourishing and healing and changing and growing, when I first met you, you had a different name.
Yeah, definitely did.
I want to talk about your name change. So, take
Yeah.
me a little bit on your journey of this new identity and how it came
Yeah.
to be.
So funny enough, on my online platforms, so y'all don't know, my name was Karen, right? And my first name actually legally is Karen Kei. And that's how I would present myself online. I didn't use my last name, so it was just Karen Kei, and people just thought my last name was Kei this whole time. And just like Kasama Culture, I actually had a different name, a business name before Kasama Culture, and I just did not feel like Karen Kei. It didn't feel like me. Like, it didn't roll off the tongue how I wanted it. I didn't like introducing myself like that. This is a name that was given to me at birth, but it just didn't resonate here. And I remember sitting here in the space, just like in quiet, just thinking about, who am I? I know like my name is Karen Kei, but I don't feel like Karen Kei. Who am I? And so people have been calling me Kei for a long time. My mom calls me Kei. People like to, whether it's just the letter K or my middle name Kei. So I'm like, I feel like Kei. Kei sounds great. Yeah, I could be Kei. I am Kei. And that just felt that felt solid, but I'm just like, okay, I'm Kei. What else, right? I don't feel connected to my last name. And it was the beginning of this year that I really started doing a deeper dive in my family, really. And my family comes from Cagayan Valley in northern Luzon. And I was just thinking about that space. Cagayan Valley has a river, right? The Cagayan River. And something that someone told me before, and I said this in my Voyage LA interview, is someone told me, Kei, you have this like warm brook energy that I don't know how to describe it, but you're just like this warm brook, like calm, but ever flowing. And I took that to heart, and I was like, okay, Karayan came to mind. Karayan means river in Ilocano, and that just dawned on me, like, Kei Karayan. Whoa, that feels like me. Like I still have parts of my birth name. And as you know, Noylan, you've seen so many changes in me since you met Karen Kei, that I am continuously flowing, changing, moving. And it just felt right. And I felt so connected to myself and to my ancestral roots and the land in itself, that when Kei Karayan came to me, I just felt so whole. And I was like, I'm running with this. I feel like myself. And it's really interesting to have to announce a name change and reintroduce myself. And I also see it as a beautiful process of like, this is who I am now. And this is who I am now. And I hope that you flow with me and continue to learn who I am, like Karayan, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, beautiful. I didn't know it actually with the new last name. But that's incredible because it's like this other name was given to you. You didn't choose it. This one you choose it and you reclaim and you reconnect and you remember your roots, your ancestors. And it's like a beautiful homage to all of that, I feel. And you get to control this story and narrative that's going forward. So I think that's super powerful, incredible.
Yeah, I can only even, I mean, even just thinking about Karen Kay, who I was back then, I'm such a different person now. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm so excited to continue to just learn more about who Kei Karayan is and the work that I will continue to do and how I will serve my community. So it's really exciting for me. And yeah, I just feel so honored to have this name.
Yeah, and I love that. You're excited to learn who she is, who she's going to
Mhm.
become, and what's possible, what's capable. You talked about that. What is she capable of?
Yeah.
Oh, beautiful. So to kind of round this out, I'm also curious to find out um, what's giving you hope these days.
It's giving me hope these days. Funny enough, I've been thinking about this lately, and it's really the youth, to be honest. The kids, the youth. And I want to circle back to um, my community organizing side. And, times are really difficult. The political climate is everywhere. And I've been honored to really, it's the youth and their mothers or their parents, because I feel like parents now are really shifting the way that they parent, stepping away from toxic ways, colonial ways of how we were brought up, right? And really shifting to create a new space for kids to grow up in a loving space where they feel heard, seen, and supported. And when I see that, parents doing the work on themselves and therefore it trickling down to their children, and how kids these days are, they know what consent is, they're aware of um, racism, they speak up about it, and they're wanting to make change even at 4 or 5 years old. Like, I feel that the future is bright and that there's hope. And I just hope that in my work as well, and continuing to be in relationship with these kids and their parents, that I can take these little bits, put them in my pocket, and when I'm ready to be a parent, also, you know, continue this path of radical parenting. And that's honestly what gives me hope. Like the youth, the kids, and this shift in their lens. And another thing that gives me hope is, on a personal level, is really just taking it one day at a time. Like, I take it, that's seriously how I'm taking it these days, 1 minute at a time, one moment at a time, one chunk at a time. And as long as I can get through this small chunk, I feel hopeful. Get through another chunk, get through another chunk. And it's really just being present and taking it day by day. I'm such a forward thinker sometimes and plan too ahead that I forget to be here. And so yeah, being present is keeping me hopeful as well.
Yeah, incredible on both levels, right? This unlearning and this relearning and this learning, actually, because a lot of this is new territory for what you said, like these parents who are trying to create new paths. And I also love this reminder of, let's be here right now. Let's be here in this threshold. There's also wisdom in this threshold before we move forward, because we're going to move forward whether we like it or not. Sometimes on our own accord, and sometimes because we get a little bit of a nudge to go through that door, right? Yeah, these are all incredible reminders. So how can our listeners connect with you?
Yeah, if you feel called to connect with me, you can reach out to me on Instagram, at Kasama Culture. I'm taking a little bit of a social media break right now, as because I am on call, and I'm just, again, really trying to be present as I move through a couple of shifts. But you can definitely outreach to me on Instagram. And if you would like, you can email me, kasamaculture@gmail.com. I'm always happy to connect with folks there. And yeah, I'm kind of becoming a lot more analog these days. So I'm just trying to find the balance of
Yeah.
being present on the online world. But you can definitely reach me there. And I'd love to connect with you all, in whatever way feels good for you. Yeah.
Awesome. So our last question, we're going to circle back to the name of the series, which is Unlock Your Inner Creator. So Kate, what does being a creator mean to you?
For me, being a creator means just doing and making whatever feels good for you, whether that's food or art, right? I don't think there's one way that you can be a creator. I think it's really just going through the movements of making and doing what feels right for you, and also listening to your calling and your path, and creating a life that you want for yourself. Yeah.
Yeah. Listening to you. Wonderful. So we always close these conversations out with either a page pull or a card read. So I have this book called Transitions from Julia Cameron. So just give me a page and let's see the wisdom that comes through.
All right, let's do my birthday, 3/7, so 37.
3/7. Oh. Birth brings me rebirth.
Wow.
My heart expands to encompass new life and new responsibilities. The love of Spirit loves through me, funding me with an abundant flow of gentle affection. I greet the souls that come into my care with tenderness and a sense of adventure. Ours is a shared journey. We are pilgrims traveling together to larger realms. The souls who are my intimates bear gifts for me by their presence. I too bear gifts for those I love. Wow, you could not have picked a better page.
That's funny.
Incredible.
That alignment is just so good. Wow.
Wow, birth brings me rebirth. Oh,
Wow.
wow.
Definitely gonna need to sit with that today.
Wow,
Yeah.
wow. On that note, thank you so much, Kay. I'm so thrilled that you were able to share your wisdom and all the ways you've really been to me a model of what transformation and healing and wholeness can look like. So, again, thank you for being here, everyone. Hope you tune in to our future conversations. Until then, be well. We'll talk soon. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this conversation and you'd like to help support this interview series, make sure to tune in to the next episode and share it with others. To catch all the latest from me, you can follow me on Instagram at The Radiant You, you as in the letter U, and sign up for my newsletter by visiting www.theradiantu.com. Again, that's theradiantletteru.com. Thanks, everyone, and remember, dream big, dream bold, and take brave steps. I'll see you next time.